Hey YouTube, welcome back to Red Cell Guerrilla. Today we're going to go over the classes of supply, and I get it, I'm sorry, you guys are, oh, we're here for the tactics of the channel. We're working on strategy too, right? You can't do the tactics without the things. If you don't have the supplies and the things to do the tactics, you're not going to be doing tactics for very long. Tactics are cool, tactics are sexy, but if you can only shoot for 1 or 2 missions, then you're not conducting any more missions after you're out of ammunition, right? So today's agenda, we're going to go over the disclaimer, why you give it about your supplies, how to prepare supplies for combat, speedballs, and caches, which is just going to be really short, and I'll show you guys later how to make a speedball, or at the very least my version of a speedball. Your classes 1 through 10. And a disclaimer, again, like normal, always, don't be the guy. Discussion in the slide deck and the conversation in the videos contained on this channel are not explicit directions. This is only designed by Red Cell Guerrilla to be informative and instructional for educational purposes. Red Cell Guerrilla is not telling viewers to do anything illicit, illegal, or anything at all. This is simply a discussion based on materials that are open to the public. Most of what is discussed on this channel is an explanation of ATP 3-21.8 or the Infantry, Rifle, Platoon, and Squad. This is a book that you can buy from Amazon or just get for free. This is approved for public release and distribution is unlimited, right? From the U.S. Army. You can go get this. Not a big deal. Today, though, we're going to go over ADRP or FM 4-0, which is sustainment. Sustainment, right? So we're going to deal with a bunch of supplies today. Now, why does a guerrilla give an about your supplies? You got to have supplies to do the things. If you don't have a bare minimum of classes 1, 2, 5, 7, and 9, you're not going to be doing any guerrillaing. You're going to be too hungry, cold, tired, have no ammo, missing all the tools to do the things with, and have no way to fix your tools to throw stones with or cast stones with, as Bear from Bear Independent would say. You're not casting stones with a broken blaster rifle. You're not blasting anything if you don't have a class 7 item that is your blaster rifle, right? So you're not going to do anything. Speedballs and caches. These things are kind of the same but different. They run on days of supply, which is how many days of supply can you pack into this. And for the infantry guy hanging out in the middle of nowhere most of the time, you're going to get 3 days of supplies in a speedball or have 3 days of supply in a cache. The caches are awesome. Why not? You need spare parts for a gun or a whole new damn gun? Awesome. Throw it in a cache. Cool beans. Extra uniform, add it if you want to. Socks. I always love having a good set of socks inside of a cache, even if it's just one for me. Numero uno. Ration of food maybe. Something that keeps and can be eaten without fire or at least be able to cook it for 3 days of supply on everything. Ammunition. Maybe one cache might have an entire full independent kit in it. So like if I need all the things that a rifleman needs, one singular cache with all that stuff in it. And then the other caches I would spread all kinds of stuff in. Mostly ammunition with the magazine to store them in, but not store the ammunition in those magazines so the springs don't wear out. A way to purify water or contain water. 3 days of supply for food. I always add some soap in there and a set of socks. You don't need the kitchen sink, but this is a cache. Pack it for long-term storage in a secluded area that's not likely to be found or eaten by animals or humans. Now, for other caches at old buildings or locked up areas, in a farm, something like that, you can ask a friend to hold fuel for you. This usually works out okay, but otherwise fuel is pretty difficult to get a hold of without stealing it. If you're going to steal from somebody, it better not be Green Force. It better be from Blue Force. You can steal from Blue Force with impunity if you're Red Cell. Doesn't matter because it hurts them, hurts their mission, right? Helps your mission, and it's not doing anything bad to the people that you need and want support from, which is going to be probably about 30 to 50% of Green Force. The other 30 to 50%, until you flip the power saying, hey, look, we're powerful enough for us to run this, rather than Blue Force running it, expect that green forces are just going to turn you in, right? Because it's in their best interest until it's not their best interest. Now, speedball. This is similar to a cache, but you make these specifically for your missions. Before a mission, you and your homies who are about to go do the business create a speedball. 1 combat load of ammunition for your #squad goals, and 3 days of supply of food for all of you. Think of it kind of as a 1-for-1 swap. If you've got 3 days of supplies in your rucksacks, you create trash and waste with that. You give that trash to whoever is giving you your speedball. That's why we're getting into sustainment. And they give you a speedball full of stuff. Now, we usually used either a whole new ruck, so you can do a 1-for-1 swap, or we would just use a duffel bag. Duffel bags are pretty amazing for speedball. If you create 10 speedballs, that's a full 30 days of operating time if you're doing infantry stuff. So you can be outside for a whole 30 days, and you get your food, you get your ammunition. I almost always put a bar of soap in a speedball because you nasty apes need to wash your butts and hands. Having been the nasty ape, I needed something to wash my butt and hands with all the time. So we always put soap into a speedball. 3 days of supply for food and a full combat load or 210 rounds for the entire squad. So if you got 4 guys, that's 210 times 4. Switch them out at a link-up point, trash the old crap that you don't want, switch them out, and then maybe in one of those speedballs that you created, have a singular uniform in there if you guys are all pretty close to the same size. Large regular usually works okay because somebody is probably going to tear their pants in the field and like to include a bottle of lube to clean guns with. Just a very small 2 to 4 ounce bottle of lube that lubes up everybody's gun or cleans up everybody's gun while you're out in the field. You don't want or need a whole gallon. You're going to end up spilling it, you're going to waste it, and even worse, the smell is going to give away your position. Ask me how I know. Also, trash bags, because nobody wants to carry poop or wet food trash in your rucksack or ruin a good speedball that you're going to do the trade out with. I wouldn't use fuel as a speedball item. This is something you and your team are going to need to come off the line for and either have cached to service yourself or just go buy some like normal, right? The classes of supply. There's 10 of them. Strategically, some are more important than others in the long run. Like Class 1, you need to have enough Class 1 to continue forever. But I think other classes are more tactically specific. And we're going to discuss the things that you're preparing for or looking for when you're trying to get these supplies. You're looking to integrate these classes of supply either for short-term tactics or long-term strategy on an individual or group community basis. Now, these symbols that are before you are straight out of FM 4.0 sustainment and from ADP 1-02 and FM 1-02.2. Remember, we need to be on the same page and know what units are doing and know what units have. This is to help for shared understanding between guerrillas, but if you happen to ball up somebody who has a map and they're like, hey, we have a support unit, you're probably going to be able to find these classes of supply with that support unit. Helps us identify supplies that Blue 4 has so we can take it from them. Class 1, anything for sustainment. I think the symbol's supposed to be a half-eaten cookie. But yeah, it's a lot of food, health and welfare items in this category. You need food. Long-term storage food, for a year, and then probably a way to recreate that, but we're going to get to the recreating of food at Class 10, right? So some of this stuff can be Class 3, some of it can be Class 10. It's very confusing whenever we're going through the classes of supply, but typically Class 1 is ready to use, ready to eat, right? The Class 2, your OCIE, tents, and admin. This is supposed to be a key. The symbol is a key because these items are supposed to be under lock and key because Private Joe Snuffy goes out there and pilfers them. These are things that are nice to have and everybody wants them. Uniforms might not be super important to a guerrilla, but having clothes that are camouflage and help in the field so you're not seen from a mile away are probably important. Those camo clothes probably need to be tough and probably need to be fire retardant because nobody wants plastic melted to their skin. You got to think that frac use didn't exist whenever we started the early war on terror. and guys were getting plastic clothing melted to their skin immediately. So a combat uniform is probably kind of not maybe super important to a guerrilla, but still important. They work and they do things, and they're usually relatively cheap. Rucks, bags, sleep systems, entrenching tools, magazines, and all the other things that you need for actual missions and field work. Tents are not great for summer, and definitely for single homies out there doing a bivouac or a patrol base, I wouldn't use a tent. It gives you away very quickly, too fast. Anything above your knee, I wouldn't use, and anything that takes up a ton of time, I also wouldn't use, because you don't want to spend more than 24 hours in a patrol base, or, if you're a crazy person, 12. Now, admin for everything. All you guys who are out there that are like, 3 mags is all I need. Okay, cool. 3 mags is all you need, and maybe you have probably never been in a firefight, and I would rather have way more ammunition than the other guy. And I'll tell you why whenever we get to class 5. But the admin stuff exists. A terrain model kit is very important for operations, because then you and your group get a shared understanding of how is this operation going to go down. Pen, pad, pencil, Sharpie, those things are very important. Maps. You apes out there need to know where you are, where you've been, and where you're going. It also tells you where is the enemy and what is your general location when you are moving around the enemy. Now, for long-term stuff, housekeeping supplies. You want to clean up vomit or poop or something nasty in your house, and you want to do it with something that you can burn or wash or toss, because having hygiene and some basic house cleaning stuff is awesome if you don't want to be a dirty ape. Class 3. I want to say that this is a martini glass, or it is a fuel funnel, right? It's a donkey dick for any of those who know what that is. Petroleum, oil, and lubrication. Are you going to be able to move your car? Does your car take gas? Does it take diesel? You got motor oil? Do you have transmission fluid? Do you have differential fluid? Do you have gear oil? Do you have your air conditioning fluids? Again, for a year, right? Minimum for a year. Or do you have a way to create it? Now, what about your gun? Are you going to clean it? Are you going to lubricate it? That's class 3. You want to cook with gas? You want to cook with charcoal? Maybe make a fire, boil water? Class 3. Have POL or class 3 in storage. I consider batteries class 3, but they are also class 2 items, the admin items, right? Okay, class 4. Construction materials. This is supposed to be an engineer's barricade or a fence. Barbed wire and concertina. Barbed wire and concertina wire are part of this class of supply. So is anything that you're going to build with. I wouldn't say anything that you're going to dig with, but anything that you're going to build with, right? So all your construction materials, your metal construction, your fence posts, your picket pounders, right? That's still class 4. So yeah, anything you need to make barricades, fortifications, fighting positions are probably a good thing to make. So the construction materials, sandbags, the construction materials needed to create those installation equipment, right? Or installation buildings, or to create an installation. Class 5, all ammunition. Yes, all ammunition. This is the symbol is a big dick bullet looking thing. I think it's supposed to be a bullet, pretty sure. Class 5 is all ammunition. Claymore, class 5. Ammo, class 5. Cartridge case, class 5. Artillery shell, class 5. Explosive of any type, class 5. Smoke, class 5. Propellant for an explosive, class 5. Your cartridge casing, bullet, primer, and powder, all class 5. Now, how do you calculate class 5? It's very difficult to calculate, right? Well, basic combat load is 7 magazines of ammunition, whatever that ammunition is, right? So 20 for you giant 308 by 5.1 freaks, and 5.56, it's going to be 30. So 3 days of supply means we're going to be carrying a double basic combat load into the field. We also take into consideration who are my friends and the population size. We're not Blue 4, we're not police, and Blue 4 Police forces are probably going to be using much less in their basic combat load, but regular Blue 4 military are going to minimum be using the 7 and then have their rucksack another 7, right? Call it a double combat load. Your prime directive as a police officer is not really to fight. Usually they're making arrests, right? So they don't carry as much ammunition. Blue 4, however, that is their prime directive, is to screw stuff up. They're going to have a minimum of 7, right? And the Blue 4 guys and police, they are not going to use 2 guns against 1 guy. Blue Force is never alone, and I want you to think about you as an ape. What are you attempting to do? And then have maybe enough rounds to put 8 to 10 rounds into each Blue Force member in your area, or do it by a population percentage and store it that way if you're going to store it. 14 magazines is the bare minimum for a mission, and I would say 7 magazines worth of ammunition per person per speedball. And then add smoke, frag, claymore, detonators, AT4s, whatever else you intend to use, right? But I don't have that stuff. You can get smoke. I think smoke is massively important. Frags, we'll go over how to retrieve those or tactically acquire those later in the series, but smoke is something you can go get as a guerrilla, and it's still class 5. Personally, I would rather have 1 to 2 on my person and then another 1 to 2 in my ruck, because running away is fantastic. Running away to stay alive, if you're throwing smoke out there so the enemy can't see you while you're running away, is even mo better, right? So let's do that. Good rule of thumb for a firefight is whoever is loudest for the longest is probably going to be the winner. And again, I suggest that if a guerrilla force is engaging any Blue 4, make a calculated shot, harass your target, and get the heck out of there. But again, we're going to go over actual tactics for that later on in the channel. Class 6, these are human demands, and I demand beer and cigarettes. That's how everybody in the military recognizes a Class 6 shop. We call them Class 6 shops because they sell alcohol. So that's what we associate it as, with alcohol and beer. But you also need toiletries, toothpaste, nail clippers, something to cut your hair with, hygiene items. These are one of those things that is also Class 1 sustainment and also Class 8 preventative medicine, because preventative, like I said, all these are kind of mixed up. It's like a weird Venn diagram of this is Class 1, this is Class 6, this is Class 8, right? And it's very difficult to keep up with it aside from alcohol. Now, Class 7, your major end items, the bola. Your radio, Class 7. Blaster rifle, Class 7. Hand blaster, Class 7. Your truck, Class 7. Water buffalo, Class 7. All your major mission critical equipment is Class 7. A toolkit is Class 7. One singular tool out of that toolkit is Class 9. We're going to go over that here in a bit. And your basic initial issue kits, or BII kits, for like a vehicle recovery system, that is also Class 7. Now, Class 8, your medical stuff. This is supposed to be a cross, as in Red Cross. Medical rags, heart rate monitor, medical specific machines. So if you have a sonograph, awesome, good for you, but that is a Class 8 item. Your IFAC and everything in it, Class 8. Your squad first aid kit or field trauma kit, Class 8. Your ambulatory equipment is Class 8, but so is preventative medicine like bug spray, certain sundries like sunblock. Again, these are Class 8, Class 1 mix of an item, and some of those preventative medicine items are also Class 6, personnel demand. Now, Class 9, this is super important. The sprocket is probably the second most important class of supply to have and stock up on. Parts that make up of any of your Class 7 items. All the parts that make up your Class 7 items. A barrel for a rifle is Class 9. The bolt is Class 9. The bolt carrier is Class 9. Your firing pin, Class 9. Extractor, Class 9. Ejector pin and springs and all those roll pins, that's all Class 9. Same thing with your tools that go inside of a full set of tools. The 10mm socket driver you keep on breaking or losing is Class 9. Your car parts, your air filter, hoses, spark plugs, diffs, axles, suspension. This is all Class 9. I think if it were me, if it's Class 9 for a weapon system, firing pins, I would have 100% of the firing pins, right? Because it's easier to replace a firing pin than it is to replace an entire upper. Maybe one extra barrel or just have an extra upper. The lower you probably don't necessarily need to have an extra entire lower if you're basing it off of rifle, but maybe have an extra buffer tube spring if you're doing an AR platform, or the operating spring for one of those systems. And then for car parts, your air filter, like I said, we did air filter and all that stuff. So how do you prepare your vehicle for Class 9? I would say probably 100% of the replaceable parts for the year. Your air filter, one every 50,000 miles, unless you drive off-road and then cut it to much less on the mileage. So maybe every 25,000, or depending on how much time you spend off-road, every 10,000 miles. So you need another air filter for every 10,000 miles. Every liquid, to include your brake lines, your evaporator, your coolant, your differentials, have 100% liquid for that for probably a year, 1 to 2 belts of each type, because those are items that are not a if it breaks, that's a when it breaks item. 100% of your new tires, but you should be fine with like 5, 6 total wheels, meaning have 1 or 2 full-size spares ready to go, and have the tools to remove and replace the tires off the wheel. Suspension, maybe some of those parts I'd do like 50% of your suspension, because you might blow out the shock on the front, right? Just one of them. Maybe one front axle, maybe one rear axle. Or go to a website specifically designed for your 4x4 vehicle that has a pack and list of the most broken parts on the trail for that particular vehicle. Find sparesbox.com.au, which is an Australian website, but they know their cars. They know their off-road cars. That is their specialty. They love their off-road driving vehicles, and they know this is what we see, mechanic-wise. This is what we see breaks on this vehicle. This is what we see break on that vehicle instead. Let's go to Class 10. Farm equipment and other programs. It's CA because these are civilian affair equipments. We usually just say seed and feed in the military. Anything that you need to create Class 1 from the ground up, because a seed is not Class 1, but it can turn into corn that you get to eat. Or a calf is not Class 1, but that calf you can clean, field dress, right? You can dress that calf and turn it into a bunch of little steaks and ground beef, and the steaks and beef are Class 1. But having that animal on the hoof, that is a Class 10 item. Having your seeds ready to put into the ground, that is a Class 10 item. Things that are for agricultural support or economic development of a nation, that is a Class 10 item. Educational equipment is Class 10. A tractor itself is going to be Class 7, but again, seed and feed are going to be Class 10, and probably some of the components like a plow tooth, maybe, that might be a Class 10 if I remember correctly. But then your civilian program stuff, your educational equipment, your reloading equipment is going to be a Class 10 equipment, but the reactive stuff, like your powder, your primer, your bullets and cartridge casings, are still going to be Class 5. A 3D printer to create weapon lowers, if that's your thing, that's going to be Class 10, right? The raw material to make that Class 9 item, that is going to be Class 10. So in conclusion, why do you, as the monkey out there, care about supply? We went over food, water, sustenance, your OCIE, fuel, barricade materials, ammunition, personnel demands, major end items, medical supplies, repair parts, and farm stuff. This concludes all the cool, fun things about supply. In transmission.